I saw the most perfect summary of our times last weekend. It was at a crowded brunch spot. This woman gets her food, a beautiful plate of eggs Benedict. And for the next 10 minutes, she doesn't eat. She works. She stands up on the bench to get the perfect overhead angle. She tells her friend to move his coffee cup because it's ruining the composition. She rearranges the hollandaise drizzle with her knife. The food is getting visibly cold, but she's completely absorbed, not in the meal, but in the documentation of the meal. Finally, she gets the shot. She posts it. And then the strangest part, she doesn't talk to her friend. She just stared at her screen, watching the first few likes roll in. A little smile appears only when the counter hits double digits. Then, and only then, she takes her first bite of the now cold, rubbery egg. That moment. That's not just a person taking a photo of their food. That's a performance. It's the perfect illustration of a new kind of prison we've all built for ourselves. A cage where the most trivial, mundane parts of our lives have suddenly become our most high-stakes, demanding work. And that anecdote, it just perfectly cuts to the core of what we're diving into today. This digital performance economy.
It's everywhere.
It is. It's a huge, pervasive shift where the goal isn't really to live your life anymore, but to successfully document it for an invisible audience. So today, we're really going to try and unpack the enormous, often invisible costs involved. We're going to analyze this shift across three crucial dimensions. First, the heavy psychological toll this system takes on our identity. Then second, the harsh economic reality, the hidden structure that actually exploits this performance as pure digital labor.
Which is the part people rarely talk about.
Exactly. And then finally, we'll explore the emerging movements that are seeking radical silence and true autonomy as a way to escape all this.
And what's so critical to get right from the start is that the very logic of these digital systems, it requires us to behave in a specific way. It teaches us that perpetual exposure is the only path to relevance.
The only way to matter.
The only way. And that simple, pervasive fear, the fear of being irrelevant, has now become the actual engine of a kind of self-imposed, willing slavery. We find ourselves aggressively competing for attention, even though for almost all of us, we're just providing free content.
Unpaid labor.
Completely unpaid labor that just props up the entire system.
Okay, so let's start there with the psychological geography of this thing, because performance itself, it's not new, right? Humans have always managed impressions, but the scale, the amplification, it's just unprecedented. To really get the mechanism of this trap, we should probably start with the foundations, with Erving Goffman's work.
Yes, Goffman's dramaturgical analysis. His book, The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, gives us the perfect vocabulary here. His big idea is so powerful. Society is fundamentally a stage. We are all actors, and we are all engaged in what he called impression management.
We're always performing.
Always. We're constantly working to control the impression others form of us. We do it by managing our setting, our appearance, our mannerisms, everything. But, and this is crucial, Goffman defined two very distinct spaces for this performance: the front region and the back region.
The front region seems pretty self-explanatory. That's the public stage, the performance.
Exactly. It's the job interview, the first date, the public presentation. It's where you highlight the positive, you curate the successful self, and you present that polished version of your identity. But the back region, that's the vital space.
That's the sanctuary.
It is. It's the dressing room. It's where the preparation for the role happens. But more importantly, it's where you get to set the role aside entirely. It's where you can finally relax, drop the act, and stop worrying about what other people think.
You can just be.
You can just be. And right there is the core psychological violence that the digital performance economy commits. Social media utterly, completely blurs the distinction between the front region and the back region.
There is no back region anymore.
It's been colonized. We've gone from performing for a defined audience at a specific time, at work, at a party, to a continuous round-the-clock performance for an invisible global audience.
Which means the self-editing, the curation, the anxiety over making sure your brand is coherent across all these different platforms and timelines.
Yeah.
It just never, ever stops.
Never. And when that back region is colonized by the surveillance logic of the front region, the pressure just becomes chronic. It's inescapable.
So when that back region vanishes, we are left entirely inside what we're calling the audience cage. The walls are made of followers, and the bars are literally woven from likes and comments.
A perfect metaphor.
And this cage, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was built on top of two pretty distinct cultural pathologies that really paved the way for this kind of mass self-surveillance.
That's a really crucial point. It wasn't an accident. The first pathology is what we can call the Big Brother style public debasement, reality TV. Reality television taught an entire generation that conflict, intense scrutiny, emotional exposure, even degradation, that these were the highest forms of premium content. The initial dynamic was pure voyeurism. We watch them act like lab rats in a cage, and we feel superior.
But then the digital age just twisted that model into something so much more insidious.
It really did. Because instead of watching other people get humiliated for a guaranteed paycheck, the audience grabbed the camera, pointed it right at themselves, and started begging for the same attention. They started engaging in this self-inflicted debasement, but without any of the financial reward.
We basically internalized the surveillance. We became our own producers, our own directors, our own harshest critics.
Exactly. We monitor ourselves, we scrutinize our appearance, we voluntarily expose our failures and our heartbreaks, all in the desperate hope of generating some engagement, some traffic, some validation.
Which brings us to the second pathology, the Seinfeld-style trivialization.
Show about nothing.
Which became the blueprint for everything.
Absolutely. Seinfeld famously took the tiny, mundane parts of life, the soup, the dating problems, the traffic, and elevated them to cultural commentary. Social media inherited this blueprint perfectly. It convinced us that our own unscripted, highly mundane existence is inherently fascinating.
Provided it's framed correctly.
Provided it's perfectly framed, filtered, and has the right witty caption. This shift turns banality, the simple act of living, into a compulsory performance requirement.
You can't just have a coffee anymore. You have to perform the having of the coffee. You have to stage it, light it, capture it, and narrate it.
And this creates a terrifying tightrope you have to walk. You have to be miserable enough to be relatable. You have to show just enough vulnerability to seem authentic and not like some kind of soulless robot.
But not too miserable.
Oh, no. At the same time, you have to be successful enough, aspirational enough to justify why anyone should follow you in the first place. Too successful and you're unrelatable and people resent you. Too miserable and you're just depressing and people tune out. The balancing act is utterly exhausting.
And why? Why do we submit to this intense, self-imposed, unpaid labor? It's for the chase, the pursuit of the ultimate scarce resource in this whole economy.
Relevance credits.
We need to define that clearly. So if we say attention is the new oil, what exactly is a relevance credit?
It's the immediate, fleeting dopamine hit of social capital. It's the quantifiable validation, the likes, the shares, the positive comments, that temporarily justifies all the endless time and effort and emotional exposure we pour into the performance.
It's the psychological wage.
It is the psychological wage we accept in exchange for our private existence. And the irony, the real trap, is that this wage is consumed the second you receive it. It has no shelf life. It requires constant, escalating renewal.
And this leads directly into a really destructive feedback loop. The first consequence of that is what you could call effort inflation.
Because everyone is performing, the baseline for what's an acceptable performance just keeps getting higher and higher. The cost of standing out escalates exponentially.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, so maybe last year, a simple photo of your pleasant backyard barbecue might have earned you, say, 100 relevance credits. This year, that's not enough. You need to stage a professionally photographed destination wedding.
Or at least a highly detailed, curated 5-day story about your unplugged cabin trip, where you somehow still manage to upload content daily.
Exactly. The spectacle has to constantly escalate just to break through the noise. We see this so acutely in fitness performance. It used to be a blurry selfie you took after a light jog. Now it's a staged, highly aesthetic, drone-shot video of you reaching the top of a mountain at sunrise.
Which required travel, props, hours of editing.
The real effort of the actual workout is minimal compared to the performative effort of documenting it. And this chase for an ever higher threshold of spectacle, it leads directly to profound mental exhaustion and performance anxiety.
And that inflation leads right to the next problem, the atrophy of real life.
Yes. The time and the cognitive energy you spend curating the cage, planning the shot, writing the post, checking the engagement, defending yourself in the comments, waiting for the likes to roll in.
Like the woman with the eggs, Benedict.
Precisely. That is time that is stolen directly from actual, messy, unmonetizable life. We are, in essence, choosing the screen reflection over the object itself. We sacrifice the reality of deep, messy, immediate connections for the polished performance of those connections.
We're choosing the mirror over the soul.
That's the ultimate trade-off. And this atrophy, this is the direct pathway to profound psychological distress. We're not just talking about simple burnout here. This is a literal splintering of the self, the integrated self, the one that exists when your back region is safe. It just dissolves into a self that is constantly monitoring and performing for the gaze of the audience.
We see that tragic fragmentation so perfectly in the story of Sarah, the UK mother. She wasn't trying to be famous. She was just trying to, combat the isolation of new motherhood by posting her journey.
But she got trapped. She got caught in the chase for relevance credits from other mothers online. She describes spending an entire hour staging the perfectly messy photo, which is just a beautiful paradox of what's required now. Required authenticity.
Staged authenticity.
And her moment of realization was just chilling. She looked at her crying child, a moment that should have been pure, messy, real parenting, and her very first thought was, this isn't on brand for my feed.
Wow.
That's it. That's the moment the performer completely overrides the person. The self has fractured into mom, who's dealing with real emotional labor, and the online mom, who is the performer judging the real mom's actions based on their marketability. That is a complete colonization of the self by the algorithm.
That thought, this isn't on brand, is terrifying. It's the proof that the platform has totally colonized her back region. There's no place left for her to simply be a mother without the pressure of the audience and the need for continuous self-editing.
And this emotional fragmentation, it isn't just a feeling. It's entirely measurable within the economic system we've built. It ties directly to what's called the like economy. The research here is unambiguous. It confirms a profound positive correlation between the number of likes you receive and your reported levels of self-worth.
So when the likes are pouring in, you feel great. It boosts your confidence. But the flip side of that is just brutal.
It's devastating. A lack of likes or fewer than you expected immediately triggers self-doubt, anxiety, and it negatively impacts your sense of self. It forces your self-esteem to become increasingly tethered to external, quantifiable, and often totally arbitrary validation.
So your sense of self is no longer internal, it's outsourced.
Completely outsourced to the crowd. This reliance on external metrics leads to chronic anxiety whenever you post something, depression when your content underperforms, and chronically lowered self-esteem because you are in a state of constant social comparison.
And you're not just comparing yourself to the 5 people in your village anymore.
No. You're comparing your messy, unedited reality to the carefully curated highlight reel front regions of thousands, if not millions of people all over the globe. The pressure is completely unsustainable, and yet the desperation for those relevance credits ensures we don't need any external police force. We are the most efficient overseers of our own lack of privacy.
The psychological pain we just described, that splintering of the self, it's not some random byproduct. It's profitable. Which means we need to pivot now to our second section and really examine how that psychic distress is actually monetized and turned into the most valuable commodity on the planet.
Our attention and our time.
Exactly. If the first section was about the metal prism, this is about the factory that runs inside it.
So now we shift our lens to the political economy of these platforms, to digital labor theory. We have to understand that platforms are designed not just for communication, but specifically to extract and realize value from both their paid workers and, far more extensively, the unpaid activities of ordinary users like you.
So concepts like self-exploitation or free labor are key here.
They're central. These terms describe activities that feel completely voluntary, that might even be enjoyable, but are fundamentally unwaged and are ruthlessly exploited for capital accumulation.
And there's a term for this, right? Playbur.
Yes, playbur. The blending of play and labor. It perfectly captures this insidious blurring. It suggests that the time we spend scrolling, posting, engaging, and interacting is not true leisure time at all.
It's work.
It's productive, unpaid labor time that has been deliberately engineered to feel like fun. The entire success of the platform rests on obscuring the fact that it is work. By integrating the labor into what we think of as our social life, capital transforms our non-working time, your downtime, your commute, your time waiting in line, into continuously available productive labor time.
So how does this digital work translate into actual value for a platform like Facebook or TikTok using a traditional economic framework?
Okay, so digital labor produces 2 kinds of value: use value and exchange value. Use value is what you get from it: the communication, the connection, the entertainment, the sense of community.
The good stuff.
The part that keeps you coming back. But the exchange value is what the platform gets. That's the digital commodity. Your activities, the content you generate, the data you provide are captured, packaged, transformed into marketable commodities, and then sold.
Well, there's a concrete example. I'm thinking of that man who restores old tools on his YouTube channel. It's this authentic, beautiful craft, but now it's subject to the platform's demands.
That man is engaged in deep self-exploitation. His back region, his garage, his sanctuary of quiet craft is now his front region and his factory floor. He might spend 5 hours restoring a beautiful old plane. And that's the use value for him, the joy of the craft. But then he has to spend 20 hours a week editing that video, optimizing keywords, writing witty descriptions, and appeasing the algorithm's insatiable demands for consistency and engagement. That 20 hours is time he is not compensated for by the platform, but the platform harvests every second of that time to sell advertisements against his content. His authenticity is harvested and converted directly into capital.
And this brings us right to the concept of surplus value. This is where the theft becomes explicit.
Precisely. Surplus value, in a classic capitalist context, is just unpaid labor time. In a traditional factory, a worker might work 8 hours. The wages they receive might cover the value they created in the first 4 hours, but the value created in the last 4 hours, the surplus labor time, is appropriated by the capitalist as profit.
In the digital age, that process just diffuses everywhere.
It does. Let's take your question.
Yeah.
If I spend 2 hours perfecting a TikTok dance, what's my necessary labor time? What I'm getting paid? And what part of that is pure, unpaid surplus labor time that TikTok harvests?
Right. What's the calculation?
Well, this is what reveals the extreme rate of exploitation. The necessary labor time is the minimal sociality, the entertainment, and the dopamine hit you get for those 2 hours of effort. But that satisfaction, that pleasure, is deliberately engineered to be minimal compared to the effort you put in.
So it's just enough to keep me coming back.
Just enough. Because you, the user, are entirely unpaid on commercial social media, the argument is that the overwhelming majority of the time you spend online, the posting, the interacting, the scrolling, the reacting, is essentially surplus labor time.
Which means the rate of surplus value, the proportion of unpaid labor to paid labor, it approaches infinity. Because there is no paid labor.
Exactly. Users are unpaid workers completely alienated from the products and the massive value they create for the platform. It is the ultimate heist, conducted in plain sight.
And this whole system is rooted in the commodification of our attention.
It is. A sociologist named Dallas Smythe identified the audience commodity decades ago, arguing that mass media like television wasn't selling shows to viewers, it was selling the viewer's attention to advertisers. That commodity has now evolved through user-generated content and data into the attention commodity. The moment you are scrolling, you are the product being packaged and sold.
And the mechanism for packaging and selling our attention is best described by Shoshana Zuboff's concept.
Surveillance capitalism.
Right.
Zuboff provides the perfect framework for how this extraction is systemized. She defines surveillance capitalism as the unilateral claiming of human experience as free raw material for translation into behavioral data.
So my life is raw material.
Your clicks, your likes, your location, your pauses, your conversations. It's all just raw material. This data is then declared a proprietary behavioral surplus and fed into machine intelligence processes. The output is what she calls prediction products.
They predict what I'm going to do.
Not just what you'll buy, but what you will do, not just now, but in the near future. And these prediction products are then traded in what she calls behavioral futures markets. This makes the stakes so much higher than just getting irrelevant ads for shoes you already bought.
So it's not just selling my past behavior.
No, that's old news. The platform isn't just selling your current purchasing habits. They are trading on the statistical prediction that you, specifically, will buy an electric scooter in the next 3 weeks, or vote in a certain way, or become dissatisfied with your insurance provider next quarter.
That's unsettling.
It's more than that. To illustrate the danger, targeted ads now work in tandem with your environment. Your phone can detect you're walking downtown in the evening, and at that precise moment, show you an ad for a new cocktail bar 2 blocks away. This extreme, specific targeting doesn't just reflect your choices, it actively impacts them. It influences your activities, your consumption, your political decisions. The companies trade in the certainty of your future behavior.
This entire economic stratification, this caste system, is mapped out perfectly when we look at a specific platform ecosystem, like the Instagram case study. It reveals a digital caste system that's operating right now.
That study breaks down digital labor on Instagram into 4 distinct realms: celebrities, influencers, shoutouts, and then ordinary users. It maps a complex, stratified free market where only a tiny fraction of people are actually getting paid.
So the first three groups, celebrities, influencers, and shoutouts, they are the paid intermediaries, the privileged minority.
Correct. Their primary asset is the attention of their followers, which they then sell to brands. They are the essential mediators, using tags and hashtags to connect capital, the brands, to the vast, unpaid user base.
Let's break down influencers for a second.
Influencers are essentially micro-celebrities. They accumulate followers by sharing these intimate-seeming narratives of their personal daily lives, and in doing so, they sell that concentrated follower attention to brands. And notice, they almost never engage with controversial political or social issues.
Because it's bad for business.
It's very bad for business. Their asset requires broad appeal, so they stick to consistent self-promotion and brand promotion.
And shoutouts are even more mercenary. They're just direct marketing middlemen.
They are purely functional. They just repost content and tag promoted accounts. They act as direct intermediaries between consumers and brands, explicitly for the purpose of boosting follower counts. You see brands themselves engaging heavily with users now, responding quickly to comments because they need to communicate directly to sell commodities and gain trust.
I've seen them do this thing where they hide the price.
Yes. They'll deliberately keep the price private and instruct users to send a direct message for information. This encourages direct contact and, more importantly, generates more comments on the post, which of course boosts its visibility in the algorithm. It's all about generating engagement.
But the vast, silent majority is the fourth group, the ordinary users. They are the true, unpaid laborers creating all this immense surplus value.
They work completely for free, yet they contribute in three critical ways. 1, they generate the content, the raw material. 2, their attention is commodified and sold by the first three groups. And 3, they become the consumers who realize the brand's profit by buying the advertised products. They pay the psychological price, they do the unpaid labor, and they are the final customer.
And we have some really striking specific data from a Persian Instagram survey of 600 people that confirms the sheer scale of this unpaid labor time. It's pretty hard to ignore.
Look at the volume of time theft. 75% of users spend between 30 minutes and 4 hours daily on Instagram. 4 hours a day. That's 20 hours a week of free, unpaid cognitive labor. That's more than a part-time job for a platform you don't even own shares in. And nearly all of that time is surplus labor time.
And the awareness that this is exploitation is alarmingly low. The data show that more than 30% of ordinary users are completely unaware that they are directly helping popular users make a profit simply by liking and commenting on their posts.
And that activity is the lifeblood of the platform's engagement metrics. 47% like or comment on popular posts. 53% share popular posts or profiles. Even more concerning, 17% have posted a photo of a product they bought, acting as unpaid, enthusiastic advertisers for a brand.
Tagging the company, promoting it for free.
Just for the thrill of the interaction, for a handful of those relevance credits.
What I found most insightful, though, was the correlation between a person's motivation and their behavior. The survey found that unemployed and self-employed people used hashtags and references to brands significantly more than others.
This is a crucial finding. It exposes the heart of the neoliberal ideology that's woven into the very structure of these platforms. It indicates an intense, almost desperate investment into the possibility of becoming famous or rich, the dream of becoming one of the privileged influencers.
The lottery ticket.
It's exactly that. Influencer capitalism operates as this manifestation of the neoliberal transformation, actively pressuring individuals to become entrepreneurs of the self. They perform all this extra unwaged work in the hopes of joining the tiny minority who actually earn money, mistaking a lottery for a viable career path.
So whether you're saving a perfect photo of Eggs Benedict or you're engaging in a massive hashtag campaign to boost your visibility, all this user-generated activity, the cognition, the communication, the cooperation, it can all be tied back to Marx's concept of the general intellect.
The general intellect describes a collective, social intelligence, the accumulated knowledge, techniques, and social know-how of a society. When you're navigating a digital space, when you're providing feedback, when you're building complex social rituals online, that cognitive labor belongs to this general intellect.
And social media just vacuums it all up.
It appropriates and exploits this collective cognitive labor, transforming these purely social and communicative processes into monetary flows for shareholders. In essence, the entire platform structure, whether it's Facebook or TikTok, operates as a massive social factory.
And we're all the workers.
We are all the social workers performing continuous, unremunerated information labor. And we're not coerced by a boss standing over our shoulder, but by the anxiety of social exclusion and the very human desire for sociality itself. The platform positions itself as giving you the power to build community, but the actual measurable consequence is the wholesale commodification of yourself and your relationships.
The psychological cost is fragmentation. The economic cost is exploitation. This brings us to our final and maybe the most urgent dimension of this deep dive, the path to defiance. If the whole system profits from our performance, then the most aggressive act of resistance left is the conscious, aggressive refusal to participate.
It's the demand for the right to be unmonetizable.
Exactly.
The antidote to the audience cage is really twofold. You have to demand opacity, and you have to prioritize the unscalable. We have to recognize that every single moment of our performance feeds this engine of extraction. So taking that performance, that data, and that attention back is the only act of true autonomy we have left.
And this pursuit of autonomy is articulated perfectly by the philosophy of digital minimalism.
Digital minimalism is so much more than just cutting back on your screen time. It's championed by Cal Newport, and he defines it as intentional, voluntary practices of paring back on technology, but from a long-term philosophical perspective.
So it's not a quick fix.
Not at all. The goal is profound. To regain control over your attention, to counter the accelerating pace of life, the feeling of time scarcity, and the chronic pressure to stay constantly connected. It's about being deliberate with your tools rather than letting the tools dictate your behavior. A shift from consuming technology haphazardly to consuming it intentionally.
I like that. What are the core principles?
There are three. First, reducing the mental clutter from the constant glut of devices and apps that are always pulling on your attention. Second, optimizing the way you use the few technologies you decide to keep. And third, and this is the most critical one, ensuring that the technology you use only supports your deeply held values or goals, rather than just serving as a distraction or a performance venue.
It's a philosophical and behavioral reset. It sounds like it requires a really structured approach. Newport suggests a process, right? The digital declutter.
Yes, and it's basically the Marie Kondo approach applied to your digital life. You have to ask if the technology truly serves your values or if it just sparks a fleeting manipulative hit of dopamine.
Just what are the steps?
It's a three-step path to reclaiming control. And the first step is mandatory. You have to take a full 30-day break from all optional technologies.
Define optional.
Anything not absolutely essential for your work or your primary personal communication. So social networking sites, most streaming video, casual news browsing. You have to be ruthless. You have to force a vacuum in your life.
That 30-day vacuum is where the resistance begins. You're creating empty space. So step 2 is about what you do with that space.
Right. You have to fill that space productively. You set a concrete goal to learn a new, valued skill-building activity with all the time you've just freed up.
And this needs to be something real, not just more consumption.
It needs to be something that supports a deeply held, non-consumptive value. Learn a foreign language, finally master a complex culinary technique, dedicate yourself to reading physical books, or take up a hands-on hobby like rock climbing or woodworking. The point is to replace the passive consumption of the audience cage with active, skill-building, human-centric enrichment.
And then step 3 is the filter. This sounds like the hardest part.
It is. After the 30 days, you reintroduce optional technologies only if they directly support those new goals, those deeply held values you've rediscovered. If you find that Instagram doesn't actually help you learn French or become a better woodworker, it doesn't get to come back into your life.
This intentionality is the foundation. But the true peak of resistance, as you put it, is what we're calling radical invisibility.
This is the aggressive execution of that intent against the very logic of the performance economy. It's the willing eviction from the audience cage.
This requires a huge mental shift, though. You have to embrace the terror of being unvalidated. We see this so powerfully in the anecdote of the graphic designer in Stockholm.
She was a perfect digital native. She had successfully built her brand, she was accumulating those relevance credits, and she chose to commit digital suicide. She vanished. No final post, no dramatic exit. She just deleted her accounts and consciously forced herself to resurface only in real life.
What did she do instead?
She focused on starting a local, physical book club, and she learned rock climbing experiences that, by their very nature, cannot be quantified, captured, or posted in any meaningful way. You can't Instagram the feeling of a real conversation about a book. You can't TikTok the visceral fear and triumph of a climb.
She was prioritizing the unmonetizable experience over the profitable performance.
Yes. And she reported that the initial feeling wasn't freedom. It was pure, unadulterated terror. She said she felt like she didn't exist because she no longer had an audience validating her experiences in real time.
Did she push through it?
She did. And by embracing that terror, she challenged the core premise of the audience cage. She proved that a life without an audience is still a life. It's the courageous choice of messy, inefficient joy that has zero market value over the polished, profitable performance.
And the practical benefits for people who adopt this are extensive, right? It's not just a philosophical exercise.
Not at all. The interviews with people practicing digital minimalism consistently highlight several key benefits. A dramatic reclamation of control over their time, fostered mental well-being, increased attention and quality in their real-life social relationships, and a palpable increase in confidence that isn't tethered to external validation.
And what's the key practical strategy they use?
Consistently increasing the threshold required to engage with the smartphone, hiding it in another room, deleting apps, turning off all notifications, making unintentional, habitual actions as difficult as possible.
So the ultimate defiance against this whole system is prioritizing the unscalable. It's investing your time and effort into tasks that are too rich, too complex, or too messy to be captured, quantified, or monetized by the platforms.
Exactly. The final act of resistance is to refuse the wage of relevance credits. It means stopping the performance entirely and instead offering only the immediate, unedited thought or a genuine, unmonitored communication. If you refuse to be profitable, the algorithm, finding your content unengaging and unmonetizable, will aggressively push you out of the spotlight.
And that eviction, it's not a failure of your performance.
It is the ultimate freedom.
We've journeyed through the psychological trap of constant performance. We've revealed the powerful economic engine that converts our private lives into unpaid labor and capital. And we've examined the necessity of intentional silence and radical invisibility as the only viable escape path.
And the central critique stands firm. The audience cage will not be dismantled by a hero or by government regulation. It will only crumble when its desperate, unpaid stars collectively recognize their exploitation and simply stop performing.
The choice is available to everyone. To choose the quiet, terrifying sovereignty of the unveiled life over the pathetic wage of relevance credits. The profound joy or genuine pain should be allowed to die with you, unposted and unvalidated, because the silence is the sound of your self-ownership.